Hey, and welcome back to part 3 of our VA First Time Homebuyer Bootcamp through Moving the Military. As you know, my name is Dina Watson, and I am the co founder of Moving the Military. We are a nationwide education platform for not only the agents who are working with service members, but service members and families themselves. Our number one goal here is education and giving back value to you guys so that you understand the process of everything related to real estate before you actually have to get into the process. So, as you know, I'm licensed in the state of Tennessee. That being said, this particular conversation today is going to be a general conversation. Every single state and locality has slightly different ways that they work through transactions in real estate, slightly different things that are expected versus not expected. So today, I'm going to go over an overview for anywhere you would move in the country. So we're going to talk about just the process of buying a house, not specific inspections you might need or any of that. Now, that being said, as you know, we have a nationwide vetted and approved network of real estate agents and mortgage lenders that after 15 years in the business working with military, Matt and I, my business partner, have really scoured every single base that there is in an effort to find someone at every single base that we could put our stamp of approval on as being someone we would recommend our clients to. So, knowing that if you have local questions or if you have state specific questions, we are happy to be the conduit and the connector for you. So, reach out, write back to me in an email, send me a text, smoke signal, whatever, find us on the socials. We're happy to connect you with one of our pre-approved and pre-vetted real estate agents. The consultations are free, so you don't actually have to pay anything to talk to somebody, but we're happy to help you however we can. So today we're going to go over the actual process for buying a home. And the reason we're doing that is because I'm a firm believer that fear and anxiety are the two biggest things that we see in the home buying process, especially with military service members. The reason for that is because uncertainty and unpredictability creates anxiousness in people. Not knowing what's normal, not knowing what you should expect, not knowing the rules and how it works creates this level of uncertainty, this level of I guess you would say stress that's really just not necessary. And so I want to give you knowledge today to help you calm down and help you understand the process and make sure that you understand what you should expect all along the way. So, we're going to talk through today the real sequence of events without any of the drama that can come along with selling real estate. So, let's start with what actually happens and what's normal and what's not. Now, first and foremost, every single agent is probably going to tell you something different based on how they like to do it. So I'm going to share with you what we see most often, but don't be alarmed if somebody does one of these things out of order. There are some people who are going to compromise on making you get pre-approved and they'll show you homes first. I feel like that's really irresponsible and it's not good for you either. So I would never do it that way. So I'm going to tell you and teach you today the way it should be done. Okay. So first and foremost, if you are looking at buying a home, the very first thing that you have to do once you've made that decision, now there are steps beforehand, like this would be one of them. Education, consultations, things like that can come before so you can know what you're getting into. But once you've decided, that's what this slide shows you. So once you've decided that you're going to buy a home, step number one should always be to get in touch with a VA specialist that is a lender, a mortgage lender, and we have, quite a few of them in our vendor network. So if you want to know who you could reach out to, that's somebody I would consider really well versed in the VA home loan, we can help you with that. But your first step, no matter who it is to reach out to a mortgage lender and get pre-approved. So let's say that you want to buy a home. Maybe you've already found your agent, maybe you haven't, but no matter what, getting pre-approval from a mortgage lender is the smartest first step that there is. Even if you do that before finding an agent, because the agent is going to ask you a lot of questions around your budget and what you want to spend, and if you're pre-approved and all of that. So sometimes it's smarter to actually do the pre-approval part first. Now, you are highly encouraged to shop mortgage lenders and find one that works for not only you personality wise, but someone who works for your budget, someone who has lower fees and is not necessarily price gouging you, and somebody who understands the VA home loan. And I want you to hear this. Every mortgage lender is not created equally. Every mortgage lender does not have the same amount of knowledge. Every mortgage lender is not offering you the same product. When people buy their first home, many people believe, because why wouldn't you, that no matter who you go to, you get access to the same products, the same pricing, the same interest rates, and that is not true. Okay? Every lender, whether they're an independent lender, whether they are working with a credit union, whether they are working with a big bank, they all have access to vastly different products. So it's really, really, really important that you shop around responsibly or you reach out to someone you trust, like us, who can give you a few recommendations. Now, I'm going to warn you, I'm going to throw a flag on the play real quick. If an agent is only giving you one option for a mortgage lender, please don't just take their word for it. I need you to understand this, and I'm not saying this to belittle anyone, but most agents and lenders have like what you would consider a personal relationship with the person they're going to recommend to you. So, for example, one of my very best friends is a mortgage lender in the state of Alabama. She is by far one of the most phenomenal people, human beings on the planet. Her name is Jennifer, by the way. And she has access to a certain set of products. But I also have 2 or 3 other really great friendships with other lenders. When I recommend people reach out for pre-approval, I will always give you more than one choice. I'm not going to try and funnel you to the one person that is friends with me that's trying to get all my business. That's just not right for the client. Might be right for me, might be great for Jennifer, but it's not great for you because you don't actually get to see what other people can offer you. So, what I would suggest is that you chat with 2 to 3 different mortgage lenders at different institutions. The reason for that is because they're all going to have different fees. They're all going to have different interest rate options for you. Even though you have the same credit score and the same income, they can offer you different products based on where they work. Now, when you get that fee sheet, because what you're going to do is you're going to shop around, they're going to tell you your rates, all of those things. Something to remember, and also remember, I'm not a mortgage lender, okay? Something to remember is that many times people only think to look at the interest rate involved in the home purchase. That is a misstep. Okay, so that's why you're taking this course. That's why you're watching this video. The reason it's a misstep is because many mortgage lenders and lending institutions will create a lower rate by charging you higher fees for your loan. So essentially, you're paying a lump sum of money to what's called buy down the interest rate. What you're buying are what are called discount points. Now, I'm not a lender, so we're not going to get into all of this because it's not my lane. But what I will tell you is if you shop around and you get 2 or 3 different pre-approvals, I personally would be more than happy to do a Zoom call with you totally for free to help you look through each one of those things to decide which one of these lenders is actually all encompassing the best option for you. Now, at the end of the day, you have to make the right decision for your family, right? Or for yourself. But we can help you here at Moving the Military. Like I said, we can help you personally, the co-founders, Matt and I, or we can help connect you with an agent that's in your city specifically to know whether or not that's a good rate and a good deal for where you live. Now, moving over to number 2, agent selection is really, really, really important. These first 2 things can make or break your whole transactional process. Please, and I'm saying this with a lot of respect for the people who do this. So if you are a real estate agent watching this, please take no offense. But a lot of times people are going into Facebook groups and asking who people on Facebook would recommend as an agent. Sometimes that's a decent idea. Oftentimes, what I see, because I know a lot of these people, are people being recommended that don't necessarily do a lot of business. The people being recommended probably spend a lot of time in the Facebook group. They probably help out a lot inside the Facebook group. They might be a military spouse that everybody knows that just got their license. So, who you choose as your realtor and who you choose as your lender are the 2 most important decisions you will make. You need to interview these people. And I'm going to do another series that will talk about like the 10 questions you should ask each person, because I also want you to remember that a really great real estate agent is a salesperson, meaning they should be able to sell you on using them. Okay. So check in with them, how many years of experience they have, how many transactions do they do per year on average. because someone could have 20 years of experience and only do about 3 to 4 transactions a year. That's actually not a lot of experience, and those folks don't really have the ability to keep up with trends in the market, mostly because they're not working in the market very often. And I will say also that about 4 to 5 transactions a year is the average in our country for how many homes a real estate agent will sell. You're looking for someone who is 3 to 5 times or higher the average. Those people have usually decent reputations in town. They have a lot of vendors that they could work with. They know how to navigate tough, crazy situations that may come up. When you deal with someone really inexperienced, I need you to remember this, or someone you find in the Facebook group. You are trusting this person, this random stranger that you've never spoken to or interviewed. You didn't shop around for an agent. You didn't take a selection from some or a suggestion from someone that you trust. You're trusting the largest amount of money you will ever spend with this human being. You need to know who you're trusting that money with. Um, I've been in real estate for 15 years, so I'm going to tell you a tiny bit about my own personal situation just so you understand where I'm coming from. I've been in real estate for 15 years. March of 2026 will actually be my 15th year. And in that time period, my team has sold over 750 transactions. So I have seen the insides and the outsides of almost 1,000 at this point transactions. I have also professionally coached real estate agents around the country for almost a decade. And in that time, I've held about 6,000 hours of one-on-one coaching conversations with realtors around the country. I can tell you that not every agent actually understands how to navigate these things. And I'm telling you that, and I'm harping on this because the stress in the speed bumps or roadblocks that happen in transactions, a lot of times are the agent's fault or the lender's fault for not knowing how to navigate those things before they even happen. So when you're going onto Facebook and you're asking for suggestions, you could be getting someone who sells as much as I have, or you could be getting someone who is just a really cool person and they get recommended because they talk to a lot of people and they don't sell anything. That's a scary place to be whenever you're trusting this person with the largest asset you're going to have. So please, 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 I'm here to help. Like, I have no problems doing consults with you myself. I have no problems interviewing agents that you find on Facebook groups and telling you what I think. I've got no problems helping you. That's half the reason why we built this platform. So now, once you find an agent, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to start looking for a property. If you find an agent that's really great, they'll do what's called a strategy session with you where they figure out what you're looking for, and then they figure out how long you're going to be here and help you come up with a plan for what types of homes you should be looking for. Now, I talked a lot about this in the previous sessions, so I won't harp on it here. But number 3 is your home search. Okay. Of course, once you find the house, you're going to make an offer. And this is another place where having a strong agent who knows how to negotiate is really important, because some agents will just say, hey, what do you want to pay? You willing to write an offer for full price? All right, perfect. I also need you to remember that majority of real estate agents are paid on a commission-based compensation. And what that means is the higher the price of the home, the more money they make. So I'm not telling you that agents are doing anything shady by any means. Sometimes the best deal you can get is paying full price. But what I need you to remember is that if the agent is not trying to negotiate down the price or trying to get you better terms or trying to get your closing expenses paid or something, you need to pump the brakes. Another thing to know, about a year and a half ago, the National Association of Realtors and the Department of Justice settled a lawsuit. Okay, I'm not going to get into the lawsuit, it's really not important, but a couple of things to know that is important to you is in that lawsuit, one of the things that came out of that was that sellers are now no longer required to pay for a buyer's agent's commission. Because for all of time, 100 years, right? When an agent sold someone's home, the seller was usually the one 99% of the time who paid for your buyer's agent. That is now not the case. They don't have to. They still can, but they don't have to. So you need to have an agent who understands this dynamic and can negotiate their own compensation from the seller, because if not, you will be left paying it. Someone has to pay your agent. And what it says in most contracts in the country is that the buyer is responsible for the commission for the agent, but that the seller can issue what are called concessions meaning the seller can give you a lump sum of money towards paying for your closing costs, the compensation for your agent, all these different things. Every agent's going to get into that with you based on their state laws, but I just need you to know it's a thing. So once again, if someone you've selected or talked to hasn't brought these things up at this point, you need to pump the brakes and ask those questions. Now, once your offer is accepted, you'll go into what's called escrow or pending status. That's where you're doing all these home inspections. Some areas you would do a home inspection, a well inspection. You might have a septic tank that you want to do an inspection on. In our part of the country, radon is a big deal, so you want to do a radon inspection. There's all these different things that could be in the inspection window. Once you're under contract, you usually have so many days to conduct your inspections. And once you get done with that, you decide, do you want to keep moving or do you want to terminate that transaction? Now, let's assume that all is well and you want to keep moving. You're going to spend about 30 to 40 days going through the escrow period. You're going to work primarily at this point with your lender. So once the buyer has selected a home and is under contract, majority of the work goes towards inspections and the lending side. So your agent is going to be there working you through that process, but you're not going to spend as much time with that person as you did during your home search. That's totally normal. So you're going to go through, you're going to have to turn in a whole lot of documents. So make sure you've got your taxes, you've got your pay stubs, you've got your bank accounts ready to go, like all these things, okay? Here's something that's really important. Please disclose everything during your pre-approval process. If you pay alimony or child support, don't hide that. If you have an extra bill that you forgot, try not to hide, don't hide anything. Because I've seen many times where people forget or omit things during their pre-approval process. And when they go through closing and start verifying everything, they actually are not qualified for the home because there were other things involved that weren't considered when they did the pre-approval. So make sure that you're sharing everything with your lender. They need to know all of that. So here's, in a nutshell, the 6 parts to buying a home. And I want you to make sure that you know there are subsets in each one of these that will be more covered by an agent in your state. But I think when you understand the flow and the order of how things work, you have a little bit more confidence in the process. So here are some things too that I'm going to stop for a minute and we're going to step outside of the process and we're going to talk about some things that aren't the same thing, okay, that many people consider the same. Pre-approval and pre-qualification, that's not on this slide, but pre-approval and pre-qualification are not the same thing. Pre-approval is when they actually look at your documents, they run your credit, they do everything to double check that you're good to go. This is where your numbers are going to come from. Pre-approval is actually going to tell you that you can buy and what you can buy, what you can spend. So just remember, if someone issues you a pre-qualification and they haven't actually ran your credit or checked anything, they just took your word for it, that's a really scary thing. Find a different lender. That's not necessarily the best way to go about it. Number 2, preparation equals strategy. The more prepared you are, the more preparation is going to help you decide what you should buy. So as we talked about in the previous session, pre-approval is going to tell you what you can spend. Let's say I'm qualified for up to $700,000, but I only want a payment that is a $500,000 payment. Well, just because I'm approved for 7 something doesn't mean I have to spend it. That's where the strategy session with either us or the agent that you choose is going to help you decide what you should buy based on finances, based on how long you'll be at that duty station, based on a lot of things. Both of these things matter really, 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 really matter. They both matter a lot. I wouldn't say equally, but the best outcome for you and your family or just yourself if you're buying solo happen when both of these things are aligned. When you fully understand how to prepare for what's coming, how to have reserves, how to have a strategy in this whole situation, I will tell you the outcome is always a whole lot better and a whole lot less stressful. Okay. So we're going to switch gears and we're going to talk about representation matters more than the loan. I'm actually going to say that it probably matters more than the loan, which some people might disagree with me, but both of them matter equally, in my opinion, in some cases. So who you choose to represent you in the largest transaction of your whole life should be something that you choose carefully. They need to have a knowledge of the VA loan, but they also need to have PCS awareness, and they need to understand the military itself. Because if you have an agent who hypes you up to buy a house, and you buy a house in an area of town that is not up and coming, where rent rates are not strong, and you're going to move in 2 or 3 years, in 2 or 3 years, you may be upside down and can't sell, and all you can do is rent. And then your home sits vacant for weeks and maybe months because no one rents over there. These things matter. Finding yourself or taking a recommendation from us, somebody who knows a lot about this topic needs to recommend this person to you, not some random person that you meet on the internet. And I'm harping on this because it's so important. It's so important. These people also need to have strong negotiation skills and not be starving. Because the other thing that's kind of scary is if you get an agent who doesn't sell much real estate, your transaction may be the only one that they have going. And oftentimes that causes people to be a little more forceful for you to accept things that you shouldn't. They may convince you that things are normal when they should have convinced you not to buy it at all. And having all three of those things is really, really, really important. So remember that VA home loans don't actually fail the deals. Poor representation does. Your agent should educate you, not rush you. They should also be willing to tell you that you shouldn't buy the house. They should be willing to tell you shouldn't buy the house. And most importantly, remember that you're hiring someone that should be a strategist that guides you through this whole process. You don't need to hire an agent that's just a door opener. Now, let's talk about why strategy beats emotion. Price is one term, timing matters, and terms matter. So let's just talk about these three things. This is the offer stage, okay? Offers are not just about price. Offers are about positioning as well. Offers are about convenience sometimes for the sellers. Your offer is not just the best price. Let's say, for example, I was working with you, and something that was really important to you was that you didn't have a whole lot of money that you could spend out of pocket, but the payment was never going to be the problem. If I convince you that we need to get money off the price, or I let you dictate it and you say, but I really want $10,000 off the price, something I would share with you, being someone who's done this quite a few times, is hey, taking 10,000, like, to the seller, it's the same $10,000, whether it comes off the price or whether they use it to pay your concessions or closing costs or whatever. To them, it's just 10 grand. It's the same 10,000 no matter where it's spent. But to you, in this scenario, us having them give you the 10,000 to pay for your closing costs or to pay for commissions or any of those things is actually 10,000 real dollars you don't have to take out of your pocket to close. Taking $10,000 off the price, though, might only reduce your payment $30 to $50 a month. What do you want to do? Save $50 a month or save $10,000 in concessions that you don't have to take out of the bank in the next 30 days? That is where strategy is going to come into play. That's why having an experienced agent matters. Offers are not just about price. Now, timing also matters in this scenario because VA buyers can be competitive with more strong structure and flexibility than some other people might be able to. And I want to make sure that you understand that not only timing in terms of how long your offer is positioned, but what time of year you're buying a home in actually matters as well. And terms matter. This is the whole picture. So not only what is the price and what is the rate, but what are the terms in which you are prepared to purchase this home? What are the conditions in which you are not going to continue to buy the house? These things all matter. So just know this is not just a price conversation. Now, let's talk about escrow or pending under contract status. Let's talk about what's actually happening. I covered some of this, but we're going to go a little deeper. There are three things that are going on during the time where things feel quiet in the middle. You're doing inspections. You do have out-of-pocket costs for inspections, no matter who you are, wherever you are in the country. A home inspection is going to cost you money. A septic inspection is going to cost you money. A well inspection, if you live in the country, is going to cost you money, right? All these things are going to cost money, and this is not something the seller would traditionally pay for. This is something you're paying for. Inspections can be anywhere from $400 to, I've seen, $1,500, depending on how many inspections. And I just also want to make note that a home inspector is probably worth their weight in gold as long as you get a good one. Your real estate agent should be able to give you those recommendations. But something else to know is a home inspector is not an HVAC specialist, a roofer, a plumbing person. That's not what's happening. So a home inspector is going to find things that are wrong with the home and illuminate that, like shine a light on it. They're also going to tell you things that are not a big deal, things you should have evaluated by someone else. For an example, let's say the home inspector finds something a little off with your heating and air unit. They're going to recommend that a certified HVAC specialist come out and evaluate that unit. Now, one might think that the home inspection being $400 covers all of these other things. Maybe the home inspector finds something wrong with the roof and a roofing professional needs to come out. Each one of these people may have a different fee to do inspections. So please budget for that. The last thing you should always do is have a certified, licensed, if that's required in your state, home inspector re-inspect the property after negotiated repairs are completed. Your real estate agent should not be, and actually legally cannot be, the one who tells you whether something was fixed to standard or not. They just can't. So having a home inspector or a contractor come back out when everything is fixed and tell you yes or no is really important. The other thing that's going on during this time is the appraisal. An appraiser is not an inspector. The appraiser is just looking at price and is this a fair price for the property? The other thing they're looking for is basically, is there anything about this home and the condition of this home that would deteriorate the value of the property? So for an example, let's say that the back deck is totally rotted out. An appraiser might give the home value, meaning they'll say it's worth what you're paying for it, under the condition that the seller replaced the deck. Now, inspection items are not required. So going back to the home inspection, you can ask for whatever you want, but that doesn't mean they have to fix it. That's a negotiation point, which is why having a strong agent matters, right? The appraisal conditions, is what they call them, are non-negotiable. In order for the loan to close, these conditions have to be met. So let's go back to the example of the deck that's rotted. If the seller refuses to pay it, it's still a condition of your loan, meaning there's a conversation that needs to be had because someone has to pay for it. The sellers in some states are not required to fix anything or disclose anything. For example, North Carolina is what's called a caveat emptor state, which means buyer beware. Caveat emptor means buyer beware. All that means is that it's the buyer's responsibility to find out whatever they want to know about the home. The sellers do not, under law, have to disclose anything to you. Now, every state is not like that. So depending on where you're buying, these two things are going to be more important than some other times. So I would never buy a home, though, without a home inspection. Never, personally. You do what you want. The third thing that's happening is with your lender. They're actually processing your loan. You're going through stages of approval. They're asking you for verification of things. The quicker you can get things back to them, the more on track your transaction stays. If a lender asks for something and it takes you a week to get it, please understand you could be delaying your closing a week. And the sellers don't always have to agree to push it back, okay? So as fast as you can possibly get them what they ask for, the better. The escrow or under contract period is not a passive time frame where you just sit there. This is very active. It's where questions are coming up, and if you're not prepared, there becomes this like level of panic involved. So please don't think that once you find the house, that's all there is to it. Now, let's talk about inspections in general. Inspections are meant to be information on the property that you're buying. They are not meant to kill the deal. In some states, inspections are optional for a seller to entertain. Like I said, North Carolina, the seller does not have to fix anything. So remember this, homes are not perfect. Even new construction homes are not perfect. Inspections inform decisions, and not every issue is an urgent issue. Inspections always going to report back to you, and sometimes things look scary, but the goal underneath is not perfection. Now, I want to end with this, okay? Remember that this whole process, you're going to be guided through this with somebody, hopefully, that knows exactly what they're doing. Please, please, please make sure you're choosing wisely. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you on session 4.